This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agans, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
Our Collegiate Concierge and coaching. The idea for this really came together when we were sitting in our offices at one of the local colleges and realized there were so many conversations we were having with students and their parents that we wish had happened ages before. So we decided we wanted to help fix that while they're in high school, students need to be having deliberate and focused conversations about their future plans. So what do? Basically, what we do is we have a database, and through that database, we come up with a customized applicant plan for high school sophomores, juniors, seniors. We even work with freshmen. And what we've done is we've taken information from institutions across the country, but focusing here in North Carolina. All of this information is actually public. If a school takes Title IV funding, think federal financial aid, they have to disclose this information. The question is, where do you find it? Well, through our almost 30 years in combined experience, Serena and I know where to go track it down. So we can take school information and we can come up with a quantitative listing by which to rank students, their applicants, and their likelihood of getting into a college. And then most importantly for lots of parents out there, we also talk about money. So what we do is we take the information from the colleges and we rank them. So you've got a couple of private institutions here in the state, Queens, High Point University, right, both local in Charlotte. We've got some of the state schools, UNC Charlotte, Appalachian State, go Mountaineers. And then we also have some of the more prestigious schools in the state, Chapel Hill and Duke. And then what do? We take little Bobby, little Susie's information and we talk about the likelihood of them getting in. So, if little Bobby or little Susie really wants to get into UNC or Duke, they're going to need to step it up. This may have to do with their GPAs, things like that, but what's beautiful is we have that conversation. We've all seen students, their eyes glaze over, and after, whether you're the parent or the teacher, the conversation, we all start to sound like Charlie Brown's instructor. Wah, 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 right? But if someone else comes in, it's like taking students on a field trip. All of a sudden, they hear you. So we come in and we have that conversation, and we sometimes tell Bobby or Susie what their parents don't want to. You're not good enough. Not in a bad way, but the good news is you're a sophomore in high school, you've got time to step it up, and here's what you need to do. So we have those conversations. We put this together in a nice format, and then we also talk about some of the more qualitative information, right? You're involved in all these clubs, but you're just showing up to meetings, right? Take on a leadership role. You're doing all of these great things, but you need to do this, right? You've got all these academic and all of these athletic things, but why aren't you giving back to your community? We have those conversations with students and we come up with a customized plan to help them go into take them through high school and get them into college. So our target segments of the population are obviously high school students and their families. Any college student planning on going to graduate school, one of the things we pride ourselves in doing a little bit differently than other companies is playing the long game. So if Bobby or Susie want to go to law school or go to medical school, then it doesn't matter what they do in high school today so much as it matters who they're going to be when they apply for graduate school, right? So we look at what the requirements are for graduate school, figure out what undergrad major is going to best serve them, and then figure out what they need to do in high school to get into undergrad, to get into grad school. This is the part that's hard. Teenagers can't see past tomorrow, the prom, getting their license, or who's going to win homecoming. But we help them come up with that plan. We can't provide intrinsic motivation, but we can provide a plan for them to follow. We also work with adults that are looking to go back to high school or looking to go back to college. You tell us what you need to do, we'll come up with a plan that works for you. Is it better to go online? Is it better for you to attend night classes? We do that. The other thing that really makes us different is that we also work with students that have disabilities. So if a student is on a 504 or an IEP, we help make sure that they've got that transition, that they've got those accommodations when they get to the college so that they don't fall behind their first semester. Our competition, high school guidance counselors, they're only working with 1,000 students every semester, right? So I'm sure that all of the high school students in the state of North Carolina are getting all the information that they need, right? Customized plans. Yeah, so that's our competition. Quick fix promise companies, you pay us $500, right, over the weekend, we're gonna tell you how to get a full ride for your kid to go to college. That's allegedly our competition. And then well-intentioned families or friends, the game's changing, right? The college degree is the new high school diploma. It's not enough just to apply anymore, you've got to be deliberate. And then how we scale, we're looking for database expansion through automation, we're looking for technology partners, and eventually, we'd like to grow enough to have employees. So this is what we do, and here today we're looking for some marketing assistants, looking for, again, technology partners, and we're just thankful for the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Melinda, thank you. I am your target market. I have a junior in high school, and we are going through college application hell right now. So I get it. My first question is it a business to student play, or is it a B2B play or business to school?
It's a business to students. So we work with individuals. We're not really interested in taking on schools at this point. We just don't have the scalability today to go and do that. And plus, our process is we start and sit down and talk with the parents and talk with the students. Students need that family support. They're more successful in college. And so we need to get the parents on board to have the students on board so that we can work together to convince your student to go do A, B, and C, right?
Okay, and what's the revenue model?
So our revenue model, we pay per person. We get paid per person. And basically the initial cost for a year of access to us, including that initial applicant plan, is $450. And then we have a la carte services where we'll, read over essays. We will help come up with a specific timeline, right? If you need, Sally or Susie or whoever to know, August 1st you need to do this, August 15th you need to do this. And we can also be that person that sends the emails, tweets them, Facebooks them, or whatever we need to do so that we can we can be that push, and then the parents can just be that support, right? So we can kind of be the heavy too.
Last question before I give it to Daniel. So, again, I'm in the middle of this right now. A great resource is Naviance. Is that the way I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is an online resource that aggregates this data that you're talking about, and I can do a scattergram of how my daughter stacks up as far as GPA and her test scores against North Carolina schools, any schools. Check that out as far as how they aggregate data, because I think that's a formidable competition for you. But it's a subscription service that my daughter's school subscribes to. So I don't know how well penetrated they are, but write that one down and check it out.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. So let me start out by saying thank you for your enthusiasm. It's one of the number one things that I look for. And remind me, so you were doing more of a marketing sales pitch rather than investor focused this morning, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Don't call me sir, or you make me feel way too old. So a couple of questions, and so I like the fact that you did the problem definition up front, right? That you say that, hey, here's the problem I'm solving, right? And by the way, I have 4 kids, and fortunately, I'm a little further along, and my youngest is about to graduate next semester, and then we'll be done. But I've been through this process 4 different times, actually more than that, because a couple of them actually went on to grad school. So. Yeah, I liked the way you laid out the ranking, right? The competitive analysis. I think it was important for you to talk about, the competition just from a school, right? And you addressed that, the high school counselor or guidance counselor is sort of overwhelmed, right? Because you've got one guidance counselor per probably 1,000, a large number of students, right, that they really can't do individual service. Is that true both in a public and a private setting, or in the private schools different?
The private schools may have a little bit more access, but it depends on the school. And if you think about it, most high schools are going to have between 4 and 6 guidance counselors, right, depending on the size. So if they've got 6 and there's 4,000 students, well, they get 750 students per person, right? So the numbers still aren't great, yeah.
And I think on the competition side, I don't know the company that we were referring to earlier, but is there other competition? If you look at SAT, for example, they come out, and when you get your results, you kind of get force ranked, and so does that play in? Do you see that as competition, or is that more of a reporting?
I think that quantitatively that's competition, but one of the other things that we have is that through our years of working here in North Carolina, we also every year do a free college fair. So we also have relationships with the admissions officers at these institutions. So for instance, if I've got a student right now that's looking to go to Elon, I know to call Nick and have an honest conversation with Nick, who's one of the admissions reps there, off the books of tell me what this year's pool comes in, because the only thing that anybody has is what happened last year, right? Except for these admissions folks who know what's going on right now and how the competition's changing. Duke had a 4% shift last year in their acceptance rates. So they went from 15% to 11% acceptance rate. That's a big change. And we were on the front edge of that because of the relationships that we have. So quantitatively, I think those people have I mean, they have the same information that we have, but qualitatively, we can make those phone calls and have conversations with people in the area.
Gotcha. And then just two other quick points, and then we'll turn it over to the audience here. On your when you talked about your target, right? You did the high school students and their families. You talked about college students for grad school, and then you talked about adults returning to school. And from a marketing message, I think you're diluting your message a little bit there. So if I were pitching this, I'd probably get that a little bit more focused in terms of who the primary target is. And then the last one, and Rob hit this as well, is the pricing model, right? If you're doing a marketing, you typically it's problem, solution, and then the value proposition, right? So I would probably have spent a little more time on, okay, if I'm charging $450 for a year subscription to this, where why is that a bargain, right? What motivates me to want to pay $450 to get there? But again, love the enthusiasm. Very good pitch this morning. Thank you.
Hi, audience. Any questions?
One other thing here. So you piqued my interest when you said you had that insider's track. Really market that. I think that's great. So it's a tech-enabled service, I would say, and that you have the inside track to whatever these schools are, what the applicant pool looks like. That's intriguing to me because how my daughter may not qualify for whatever school it is, but maybe there's some insider information that you can help me with the application process. I like that. That's great.
And then for the sake of disclosure, we came up with our pricing model. Maybe this is something to put in. We are 1.5% of the annual tuition rate, the average annual tuition rate for a school in the state of North Carolina. So for 1.5% of what you're going to pay for tuition, they can't afford not to hire us. And I'm realizing we definitely should have wrap that into the end. Got it. Thank you.
As you look to scale this, how do you intend to onboard new employees?
Well, there's good news and bad news about that. The bad news is that education pays really, really poorly. The good news is that means there's lots of people that want second jobs. So people in education, whether they are advisors in college, they understand the general process of this. They would just need then to have access to our database. Right? So they understand the process of saying, right, here's the numbers that we're taking in, here's what you've got to do, here's the classes that you have to take. They have that general understanding by way of their jobs. We're just looking for other people who are as excited about it as we are, but we would probably go ahead and pull from the education environment because then they already have that. Because one of the things we're looking at is having people that could meet with people in other states. Right, so if we've got, we're looking at maybe Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, that area, the Southeast, we would find people that know that area, that know those colleges, and then could have those relationships because it is, as you said, it's high touch. You've got to have that relationship and be able to sit down and have the conversations, especially when we start talking about the money portion.
Do you guys sometimes recommend a school? That was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So what we talk about is picking a school that's going to be best for you, obviously based on major, right? Because some people want to go to I'll just use Appalachian because that's where their family has gone, right? Or whatever the case may be. But there's not a lot of engineers graduating from Appalachian, right? So if you want to be an engineer, we'd obviously say that's not a go. If you don't know what you're doing and money is a concern, we might talk about community colleges when that's not even on mom and dad's radar because everybody goes to NC State or whatever the case may be. We certainly have that conversation. We like to say that picking a college is like going shopping. If I need a new pair of heels and a nice dress for date night, I'm going to Nordstrom's, right? If I need a pair of running shoes, I'm going to pick them up at REI, right? And if I need toilet paper, I'm probably heading to Target or Walmart. Like, depending on what it is that you need and depending on what it is that you're doing, there are schools that are going to best suit your needs and help you get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of to help parents get the biggest bang for their buck and help students mitigate their student loans based on picking the right school for the student. And some students are going to do great if they're in a sea of 50,000 students, right? And they need to go to Ohio State to have A, B, and C, and they want to be a Longhorn and be at Texas, A&T. There's some students that need to be in a group of 1,500 up at Lenoir-Rhyne in the middle of the mountains and really feel their college experience, right? It depends on what are we going for, and we sit down and have that conversation to make sure, but it's 100% customized based on the student.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Melinda Daniel, ladies and gentlemen.